Let's do it. Let's hop. Lisa,
Okay.
it's wonderful
Okay.
to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. I'm excited.
Me too. So I'm really looking forward to getting into your background. It's so interesting. I want to begin with this. 5 years ago, something that totally changed our worlds was this pandemic. How did you get through the pandemic of 2020, and how has it radiated into your world now? How has it affected the way that you live now?
So it's interesting because my partner and I operate in the domestic violence space, and people say that, I believe the pandemic was actually easier for some domestic violence victims who got out because we're used to living under really difficult conditions and isolation. And so, in some ways, it was not that big a deal for me. Also, our business exploded during the pandemic
Yep.
because everyone was locked in with their abuser or just dealing with a lot of difficult co-parenting situations. Custody schedules got really disrupted. Nobody knew what to do. But if the pandemic hadn't happened, I think I wouldn't be able to operate on a global level because no one would have known about Zoom and I would have been hanging out at my local courthouse. So it was a blessing for our business. I think it was a blessing for a lot of people. Unfortunately, it was bad for some areas of domestic violence, but it was good because it forced us to learn other ways to connect, and that benefited a number of us.
Sometimes I wonder how much this Zoom advent that we live through has helped our carbon imprint. Because there's so many people that would fly and travel, gas guzzling, traversing the skies, and so much of that got knocked away because it was easy to hop on your computer.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
it's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because our clients are all over the world, and
Yeah.
I feel like I can talk to them anywhere. It's just time zones.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. If we were to get to the brass tacks of what you do on a daily basis, I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds at career day, and one of the kids wants to know what you do for a living. How do you answer them?
Ooh, 12-year-olds, it's tricky because
Yeah.
domestic violence is
What about
hard.
what about teenagers? What about kind of
I
this?
taught high school. Okay.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, so I'll just say this really like, well, a lot of them would probably relate to it because domestic violence does affect 1 in 3 women and 1 in 5 men.
yeah.
So I would say I work with who are going through divorces or very difficult co-parenting situations to help them save as much time and money and energy as possible. And it's really scary when a family is trying to separate. And unfortunately, some families don't, both parents don't just move on with their lives. They use the legal system to sort of punish each other. And unfortunately, kids are put in the middle. So we try to lower the level of conflict and help families get through it especially kids, as healthy and unscathed as possible. But I think it might be a little difficult to explain to teenagers who haven't experienced marriage and awful divorce yet, unless they're
Yeah.
living through it or they know someone who is.
True. So what did you
Yeah.
want to be when you were a kid? When you were 12 years old, what was your dream gig?
Well, I was a gymnast, so I wanted to be a professional gymnast. I love swimming, so I wanted to be a
Right.
swimmer, a writer, and an artist. So I have done a lot with art, and I am a writer big time. But my past career was as a high school English teacher and a writing teacher. So those two came true, but I was not dreaming of being a high conflict divorce strategist because I didn't know it existed.
So let me ask you this. Take me back to where you were born and raised, and what were these foundational elements that have led to not only this career, kind of that left brain part, but more of the right brain with art and writing and all of that? How did all of these seeds get harvested and become who you are today?
Oh my gosh. All right. I think back to being a child. My mom, she majored in fine arts, but she loved going to tag sales or yard sales, if you know that term, like where people would be getting rid of things and she would take me there and like find all these treasures and sometimes make them into art. And so at the time as a child, I was very embarrassed, but now I'm super into thrifting. I started a whole side business in fashion, selling stuff online, upcycling. So I have that like very artistic background. And then my dad and uncle are identical twins, and they're actually patent attorneys. So they do stuff with intellectual property. And my dad was always a really good writer, but my dad also read to me all the time, and I loved reading. So I loved reading, I loved writing, I loved creativity, and through going through school, I really focused on English literature. But my parents always said, you should consider law school. I was like really shy as a child. So I thought, I don't want to ever go to law school. And then I ended up getting involved in a career that I didn't plan on, which was teaching high school English. That was the most terrifying job that I could think of as a shy teenager myself in college. But did it and then ended up moving to I backpacked through Europe by myself. That was like a whole other story. Ended up living in Hungary for a year post-communism, teaching English over there, and then came back, worked teaching English and English as a second language. Got married when I first started teaching high school English and was with my ex for about 20 years. And always, I was like a workaholic with teaching. I loved teaching. And that teaching for me was an ability to use that creativity where I'd
Yeah.
see a movie or read a book and be like, oh, I could discuss this with my kids, my students.
Yeah.
And that just continued. And then I stopped teaching when I had my first child and then started all these funky other careers like with the fashion business and book selling online for a while and working with nonprofits and starting this huge library book sale. But the teacher in me was always in the background, that ability to use creativity, especially with writing. And so that was basically sowing the seeds. And then I never thought I'd get a divorce.
Right.
After 20 years with my ex, that ended up happening. And then being in the legal system for 10 years, all of those skills that I had learned in terms of effective communication through writing and speaking and having to be creative and learning to pivot and be quick on my feet all came into play. And then that's, of course, influenced now educating on a global level with our clients who are all dealing with the worst divorces, custody battles, and co-parenting hell.
So let me ask you this from a creative standpoint. What was the book? What was the writer that really captivated you early on?
Um, so I'm the kind of person that like I read so much that I can never remember a lot of what I read because I just burned through stuff. But in high school, there was a writer from the former Czechoslovakia called Milan Kundera, and he wrote a book called The Unbearable Lightness of Being that was turned into this beautiful movie directed by Philip Kaufman with like where the setting was almost a character. And so the book took place in Prague, and it was very philosophical about relationships. And I just saw the movie and was like, I need to go to Europe. And that kind of was the beginning of before I started backpacking through Europe by myself. But Prague was it. So that writer really influenced me. And it was a lot about how people are never really satisfied. That's why the unbearable lightness of being like when you're in a relationship, a lot of times you're looking for something more.
Hmm.
And then when you're not in a relationship, you are looking to settle down. And it's how do you balance happiness in relationship with a partner?
So the beauty of Europe is that it houses some of the best artwork in the world. What was your favorite museum?
See, I didn't go to museums very
Okay.
much. I love looking at the architecture.
Yeah.
But I think in Vienna, it was, and in Salzburg, like Austria, which was right next to Hungary where I live, just the fields and the architecture were just
Yeah.
walking down the street. You're like, wow.
I
But
know.
also in Hungary, like fields of sunflowers. So, and I lived in Holland for a little while, fields of tulips and just, the canals and people riding bikes everywhere. So it wasn't just like the artwork in museums, it was the different landscapes and settings that I was surrounded by and riding the trains, the Eurail, like back when people still did that,
Yeah.
going on trains, you could see everything.
Yep.
Like Germany was gorgeous, Switzerland with the green lakes and the mountains, just that's what really captivated me.
So let me ask you this. Who's been that hero, that inspirational force that's allowed you to not only find your place as a strategist now, but to maintain the art, maintain the creativity, and that teaching part of you? Has there been a hero?
Oh my gosh, this is so hard, but I mean, this sounds kind of cheesy, but my dad, one of the twins, my dad has been my hero because my dad has been the one who was always with me. I mean, he just growing up, he was the kind of person, he was an athlete. He and his brother were wrestlers almost their entire lives. He always jogged and he always like he used to eat like half gallon of Breyer's mint chocolate chip ice cream that I also did for a long time while I could get away with it. But he just the way he saw the world, he's still alive and he and I actually get together once a week for lunch still. But he was the one with the career that I have now who supported me through those 10 years in court. Like when I would write stuff, he was my audience. He helped me tone down a lot of what I wanted to say. He helped me like adjust my expectations And every weekend when I needed him, which was many weekends over those 10 years, he made himself available and would just stop what he was doing and worked with me. So we really established like a very strong bond from having to go through that. And as a lawyer who never litigated, who believes in the justice system, he was blown away by how unjust things were. Like this whole experience really opened up not just my eyes, but my father's eyes in terms of like, wow, the system that you turn to for relief often makes things a lot worse. And
Yeah.
so that's what we really help support our clients with as well. But I have to say my dad's been my hero.
So speaking of clients, what was the moment in these different incarnations of your career that you realized being a divorce strategist was your place? Was it a client? Was it was there a flashbulb moment? How did you know this was your path?
So I didn't know, but at some point I was getting frustrated because I was doing well in court, but I was stuck in it. And then friends would who were getting divorces started calling me and keeping me on the phone for hours. And I'd be like, I need to start making money off this. This is crazy. Like I'm spending all this time giving advice and strategy. And so then my partner Chris and I, and we're also a couple in real life, we've been together for 10 years. We were like, we should write a book about this. This is so crazy. Like because I specialize in something called legal abuse. And that was my life for all those years, which is very different from normal divorce. And that's where somebody's ex basically weaponizes the legal system to wear them down and bleed them dry financially. So as I was going through it and I was making progress and I was, doing well with getting great court orders, I was still stuck in the system. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. Like
Yeah.
we should do something with what we've learned along the way. So we started writing a book and then that got put on the back burner because the pandemic happened and people said, you know what? Actually, one agent that we talked to said, your audience doesn't, they're not going to read a book. Like they need you, they need like extreme support. So you should start thinking about doing online teaching. And so we first started by we came up with this quiz called the toxic relationship quiz that Chris insisted have like 30 questions. Like people always say do 5 questions survey. He was like, no, we're going to do 30 or 33 questions. And we put it out there and we did some Google ads and within 4 months we had like 40,000 people take the quiz. And
Wow.
people told us that just taking the quiz was so validating for them because they hadn't recognized the emotional abuse, the invisible abuse that had been happening in the relationship. So we started building momentum. And then as I kept doing really well in court and being really frustrated, but still these wins, and then my case being turned into case law, I was like, this is what I can do with my teaching and getting all these the best education in the trenches. Like we have to do something. And then we decided to really niche down and start something called a legal abuse support group. Because I was like, my life is crazy. I wonder if other people are going through it. Let's just see if this is a thing. If we can get 2 people to sign up, then it would be worth it. And we got like 12 that first week from all over the world. And I think that was the moment that I was like, we're onto something. Like I was scared to narrow down from the world of toxic relationships. And then after that, Chris got his certification as a high conflict divorce coach, and we hung out our social media shingle, and it's been like busy ever since because even though it is so niche and so specific, it affects so many people.
Yeah.
I think it's like 60 million or no, I forgot the numbers, but some huge amount of people. And now our current book that has to do with when your ex turns the kids against you, which is a huge part of our clients' community, that affects 20 to 22 million parents just in the US and
Wow.
Canada alone. So it's like, and domestic violence affects 1 in 3 women and 1 in 5 men. So there's a huge pool of people who are not talking about it. And then they usually listen to our content or see what we're posting on social media and they're like, oh my God, you guys, like you get it. I thought I was the only one because my situation is so different from normal divorce. And all my friends and family are like, well, why doesn't your ex just do that? Or why doesn't the judge do this? And I feel so, so alone and ashamed. And most of our clients are super successful in other areas. So it adds another layer to that shame because they're looked at as the role models and they're just like, I don't know who to talk to about this.
Yeah. So this has to be emotionally taxing and it can be very messy to walk into these worlds. How do you protect yourself? How do you take care of your soul, make sure that you're the best that you can be for your clients? How does that all work for you?
So people always ask, they're like, oh my gosh, your job must be awful. Like, it's the opposite. I love my career. I feel like I was made for this. It's very rewarding to see the transformation. We have a little hashtag called From Puddle to Ninja. And like I said, our clients are super successful, amazing people, and they're a mess when we meet them. And so to see them start getting better and to get less scared and more confident and being like, "Oh my gosh, I can deal with this terrorist." Like I'm not going to let them keep squatting between my ears. I'm going to learn like what my rights are and how to present properly and all that. It is so rewarding. I mean, every single day we get thank you notes, we get testimonials about like you saved my life, you saved my family. Like that doesn't drain me of energy, that energizes me. But in terms of taking care of myself, just as a side thing, because I am still a workaholic and I do have problems with like stopping, checking email to answer clients. I love traveling and I love doing anything artistic. So I love going to tag sales. I love finding things and being like, ooh, I'm gonna like turn this boot into like an upcycled boot, and I'm gonna put like beads and ribbon and leather, and I love like creating things. And I love having like great talks. I love eating out, and like on Sundays after our weekly legal abuse support group, a good friend and I always take these long walks near the beach. There's a boat nearby, so sometimes we'll just ride back and forth and just talk. And so that makes me feel better.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. At the end of the day, if you were to have a dream tonight, run into a much younger version of you, 18 years old, and you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on all of this evolution that you've done in your career up to this point, the wisdom you've accumulated, what advice would you impart on that young version of you, and would they listen?
Okay, so I'm going to shift that a little because something actually happened when I was 16 years old, and I've kept journals since I was 12, and I wrote it down. There was this old lady who used to walk this tiny little dog around the block, and she told me one day, which was really strange. She said, "You are going to find true love one day, and you will have earned it." And I was like, that is such a strange thing to say to a
Yeah.
16-year-old. I wrote it down in my journal. Years later, in my 23 years old, I think, when I met my ex-husband. He was introducing me to his family, and one person lived like behind my parents' house, a few houses down, and she walked out of the house and it was that old lady. It was his
Wow.
his great aunt, and I was like, "Oh my God." And I thought, this is what she meant. Like this is the love, like I better marry this guy. Like this is it. I mean, it like karma and everything. It was not it was
Right.
definitely not the right one. But since then, uh, I have met the love of my life
Yeah.
after going through all of this
Yeah.
awfulness, my business partner, Chris. And so it's almost like instead of the 18-year-old, the 16-year-old to realize like that woman was telling you something, you didn't interpret it properly during that time, but you still got it. And not just the love of my life, but my dream career and on a global level. Like, what could
What
be more satisfying?
sometimes it takes a while. I got remarried in my 40s, and it's like, we had talked about all of this life that sometimes you have to live and figure out, and that's so true what she said. There's times I think for a lot of people that you have to earn that place, that emotional, that whole place where you find what you're looking for, and sometimes it takes a long time.
Yeah. Yeah,
So.
for sure.
So let me ask you this. If you were to walk into a room of everybody that's known you in a professional sense, whether it's in the legal world, as a strategist, as a teacher, and you could walk to the front of that room of all of those people to a podium and tell them one fun story, maybe the first concert you went to, a magical place you traveled to, jumping out of an airplane, some kind of fun story that might humanize you a little bit to that room. What fun story would you tell that
Oh my
group?
gosh. Like the most fun set. Well, I seized on your first concert.
Okay,
So this is
yes.
not the most fun story, but that's the first idea I put in my head.
Yeah.
My first concert was in seventh grade, Duran Duran, and they're
Wow.
still around. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
And I thought I was super cool. I had when I was in high school, and this was the 80s, the early 80s. I thought it was really cool. I'd like shave the sides of my
Oh
head
yeah.
and have the different colors and
Uh-huh.
loads of makeup, and I did not fit in at that concert, but it was still a lot of fun. Oh,
Yeah.
and Ricky Schroeder, if you ever heard of that actress from oh my gosh, Silver Spoons,
Silver
he was just
spoons.
like a few rows in front of us.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wild. Yeah, I just saw
Yep.
a report that he got married recently.
Really?
Yeah, it was in the news like a couple days ago. I was like, that's a random name to be thrown around
I know
because
nobody knows that name anymore
no,
except
no.
us.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like it is weird to bring up that kind of nostalgia, and I just forget how young everybody is around me. They have no idea what I'm talking about. Like I can't bring up the 80s references because it's just like, what are you talking
Uh,
about? It's
Oh
not
my
gonna
God. Have
happen.
you ever seen Jesse's Girl?
Oh yeah.
They are awesome. So they're like this band that based on the Rick Springfield
Yeah. Yeah.
song, and
Yeah.
oh my gosh, that was so much fun. And actually a fun concert. That's like one of the most recent ones I went to that just played down the street, and it was like being in a room with hundreds of people that are all like the same as you. Like
That's
you
it.
share all this stuff together.
Just the Gen X tea room. I get it.
Yeah.
Totally get it.
Yeah, read it like we're all singing every single word for
Uh-huh.
3 hours straight of every single song. I mean, is
Absolutely.
that ever going to happen again?
Yeah, I know. I mean, you even think about arena rock anymore. I mean, the Foo Fighters girl got banged up. I don't know when they're going to get back. Coldplay now is kind of like this meme happy
I know.
thing. I
I
mean,
know.
there's just not a lot of really like, because there used to be growing up, there was all kinds of bands. There was festivals at NFL
Yeah.
stadiums. There was
And
just all,
MTV,
I
like we
know.
all knew the music because we watched the videos.
I know. And now it's just so fragmented and digitized. It's convenient, but it's just so separate and just kind of like satellite-ish. It's not like right here all together. It's weird,
Yeah,
very weird.
I
So
know. I
let
know.
me ask you this. Of everything that you've done, accomplished, and more importantly, evolved to in this point in your life, what are you the proudest of?
What am I the proudest of? Let's see. You know, my I heard my daughter just come down the stairs. Like,
That
I think there's a couple of things. One is that I was able to conquer my shyness and travel by myself and find one of the most things I'm passionate about is traveling and traveling solo. Like I never when you do the thing that you're most afraid of and you end up falling in love with it, like that's something to be really proud of.
yeah,
That's one thing. Um, 10 years in court and my case turning into case law, amazing. Like that everybody says they've never even heard of something like that. Just another thing. And then of course I hear dishes in the background. My kids, like even though it didn't work out with their father, like I feel like I couldn't have better kids than the ones that I have. And I'm so proud to have like a close relationship with them, even though they can be like extremely annoying and find it entertaining to fight with me.
yeah, it's the yin and yang. I get it. So, Lisa, at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, clients, everyone that you know that in any capacity, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
You're asking these huge questions. I mean, if I had to narrow it down, sometimes I'm say I can be like a bit of a nag and a cheerleader at the same time. And I'm really good at like making people do things that they end up benefiting from sometimes. Not like I'm a know-it-all, but my partner Chris teases me because he says I love it. Well, he doesn't say I love it. He says I love when it's a good thing and you go, see, like, see, I told you it would work out. And I get to say that a lot.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. If anyone wants to reach out, they have questions, they want to hire you, any of the good business, where's the best place to go?
Been there, got out. BeenThereGotOut.com. On social media, Been There, Got Out. My email is lisa@beentheregotout.com. Our first book is Been There, Got Out, Toxic Relationships, High Conflict Divorce, and How to Stay Sane Under Insane Circumstances. The next book is Been There, Got Out, When Your Ex Tries to Turn the Kids Against You.
So I will put all of these in the show notes. Lisa, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your story and continued success.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.